So welcome to everyone to a wonderful combined webinar today. We've been talking a lot in customer success about doing a lot of things smarter. But for me, it's never been only a team. It's never only a department. There's so much more to it. There's truly that whole customer-centric thinking that is actually a lot harder to achieve than one would expect. And one of the always fascinating discussions is how to work with the other teams, break down silos, talk together, and actually share that knowledge to get to, well, as it says here, towards a stickier customer. For me, it starts early on. Don't worry, I'll jump into that later on as well. But basically, I got into a conversation with Anna on how can we work on this, marketing and customer success. And then we got to this, how can we make sure that this is aligned and we're looking at our best fit clients and have a sustainable growth, not just the growth where in the end you're just flapping around in the air and you crash. Let's not do that. So let's be smart about it and get started. Share some knowledge. So yes, it will be recorded and it will be sent out afterwards. We want to make sure that this is not just us spouting a lot of wisdom or, no bullshit, as one of Anna's colleagues commented. But please do ask questions throughout. We will answer all of them. We'll make sure to have some time at the end. And of course, if you want to ask each other questions, maybe somebody comes up with some great idea and let's take it from there, right? So let's keep it open. So who are we? Good question. So I'm Peter, almost exactly 3 years now in Finland. I've worked with lots of startups in both Denmark and in Finland, mainly with customer success. I'm now venturing into customer success consulting, but I'm also the Nordic country lead for the Customer Success Network. So I see a lot of people from that network here as well. And I love to network and discuss with people that are not necessarily exactly in CS, but because all of us have the same goal in the end, get successful clients in and make them stay. We got to this conversation with Anna from Advanced B2B, and I'll leave it to you, Anna.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for having me. I'm super excited too.
Oh, yeah, welcome. And of course, our LinkedIn, for the record, our LinkedIns are there. Connect with us. We're happy to continue the conversation beyond this.
Yeah, exactly. I basically live on LinkedIn and also on Twitter, so you can choose. So a couple of words about me. I won't be going into details because that's the boring part typically. But yeah, I work at Advanced B2B and we're a SaaS growth marketing agency for B2B SaaS companies. We work with both Finnish SaaS companies and also companies that are operating internationally, so not in Finland at all. I work as a growth marketing strategist, so that means that I really get to work with different functions. And while I don't have any experience in personal experience in customer success, I've seen a couple of customer success. I've had the chance to actually cooperate with a lot of customer success people, and I've been lucky enough to learn a couple of nuggets of wisdom from them as well. Obviously, you all are probably a bit wiser than I am in that realm, but I'm definitely going to be able to provide you the other perspective, which is more the marketing perspective. And I guess that's the whole point of today's discussion. Perfect. So I guess we could just kick it off then. So the topic for today is as Peter just said, is towards a stickier customer, but how to actually go about that. And one of the things that I maybe wanted to emphasize in the beginning is that, okay, churn is obviously seen as a customer success problem, but it should also be seen as a company level problem. And at the high level, this is true. But when you dig deeper into what's happening on a daily basis, it's not necessarily true anymore because things are misaligned, there are disconnects, smart people make stupid decisions. Trust me, because I've been there. And as an agency marketer, I've come across a lot of great SaaS companies that are experiencing this misalignment or disconnect, or what do you want to call that. And as a result, everyone has a different definition of success, what success does look like for their clients. So, and this is something that has everything to do with customer retention and eventually business growth. And this is the perspective that I'm taking today when I'm talking about this. Yeah, and if you have any questions, just shoot me a message and ask it, and I'll try to like answer them if I see them, and Peter can just, you know, let me know if there are any questions in the chat, or I can just discuss them afterwards. So oftentimes when you are experiencing these problems, like, you know that you may have a problem, you're looking at your churn rates, right? So that's the obvious place to go. If your company is losing customers so fast, you can't replace them in a sustainable way, you obviously have a problem. That's a no-brainer. But the problem there is the churn rate doesn't tell everything. That's also a no-brainer, but many people don't often know how to go about that, how to go beyond that, basically. So here's just a quick list of symptoms that I've seen a couple of times as an agency marketer. So it often starts with sales and marketing, so the customer acquisition awareness process. So they often experience a lot of lead generation problems, but it obviously starts even earlier. So it comes down to demand generation, brand and positioning. Your brand could be seen in a funny way, and like funny type of customers are coming in, and you're like, where are these guys coming from, and why do they want to buy our product? But you don't necessarily know why this is happening. You're experiencing very like high acquisition costs. Also, the sales cycles tend to be super long. And finally, the obvious thing as well, customers are often very hard to close. So the salespeople or marketers need to do a lot of, so to speak, damage control. Then when they close, when they finally land these customers, they oftentimes spend not that much time in the product, and they can leave some features can be left unused, or they can be misused even. I've seen so funny stories, but I won't be going into details here. Then, well, this is something most of you probably know a lot better than I do, but just a couple of examples here as well. So you may be experiencing very low activation and engagement rates, high churn rates, both in revenue and user churn and so on. And finally, for the customer support, they are experiencing this in a very personal level, because these are the people that those clients are actually burdening. So basically they are the ones getting that. So, well, okay, now we know that this is happening. We have the problems. There's probably something deeper behind the surface, but how should we go about that then? The problem here is that we all know these symptoms of poor performance. Like, I mean, it's obvious again, but they often go misdiagnosed. So as a result of that, we end up sort of like hacking growth within the different functions. So we end up doing things like, hey, should we introduce a different plan for this and that type of customer, because they are obviously not getting out of this and that feature, for instance? Or should we charge upfront so that customers wouldn't be able to churn? Or should we do this and that? You know, all these like hacky hacks. Many of these are not wrong per se, but they are also not enough. And that's the big problem there. So the core issue would be, or is here, that no one is actually looking at the big picture. I mean, somebody's looking at the big picture at the high level, but nobody's actually looking at how all these functions or all these symptoms are connected and intertwined that I just showed you. So that's the problem. And while customer success is, as far as I've understood, it's supposed to drive growth and not just to ensure customer happiness, if you know what I mean. But how is customer success supposed to do that if somebody else is throwing toxic chemicals into the upstream when you are located in the downstream? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't add up. So to simplify, again, this is a bit of a background, but anyways, churn happens for one of these two reasons. And this is probably my favorite quote from one of my favorite influencers, so Lincoln Murphy. So your churn happens for two main reasons. So either your customer dies or goes out of business, hopefully it doesn't die, or they just don't achieve their desired outcome. So they won't make the progress that they were looking to make. So if we look at the latter one in a bit more detail, so why do these customers why are these customers not making the desired progress? So the reason can be a bad product. The reason can be bad user experience. You may not understand what progress they're trying to make. So you may be addressing a wrong use case, for instance. Another reason, a very typical one, is that you have set, by you, I mean the company, you have set false expectations. So basically over-promising, under-delivering, typically the case with sales and marketing, if they are measured by customer acquisition metrics. Another reason could be the customer is simply forgotten after the sign-up happens. So yeah, that's kind of obvious. You can have misaligned in internal processes or some other type of misconnects there. But I would still argue, like, all of these are valid reasons and they apply in most of the cases at some level, but I would still argue that the main reason why these things, why you are experiencing these problems and a big, bigger churn that you should be experiencing, is that your company is simply acquiring poor fit customers. So basically what you're doing, you are pouring poor fit customers into a leaky bucket and you are trying to fix something that is not the core issue there. So that is something that marketers, and like, trust me, I'm a marketer, I should know we're doing this. I have done this as well. So I'm the first one to raise my hand here. I should be a bit wiser today, but I'm definitely guilty of this as well. So basically marketers are actually letting customer success people clean up their mess. And that's just horrifying, I think. Like, it shouldn't be like that, but that's the reality.
I'm saying nothing here. I'm just.
I mean, I can say this out loud because I'm a marketer.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. That's why I'm letting you talk.
Like, I can hear people nodding silently, like,
exactly.
Yes.
Or doing the face palm, right, or something.
Yeah, exactly. So as our friend Lincoln Murphy from 16 Ventures said, churn is a symptom, not a disease. So churn is an indication that something else is wrong. Churn isn't actually the problem itself. So, I mean, it is a problem, but it's not your customer's problem. It's your problem. It's your company's problem because you're losing revenue or whatnot. But the problem that your customers are experiencing is something else, and they have a different problem. And the result of that problem is the churn that your company is experiencing. And that is also why most churn reduction tactics and similar are actually solving your problem, not the customer's problem. So that's why you should start from the beginning of the funnel, basically, or customer lifecycle. I don't even like to talk about funnels here. Anyways, main point being here that bad marketing causes just as much churn as bad product does, as bad onboarding does, as whatever, broken product. So it's definitely an organizational problem, not customer success problem, not marketing problem, but it's the full funnel problem. So what is required here is a shift in the mindset. So we really need to stop optimizing for silos. I think we all agree here. I can hear the nodding again. Yeah. Perfect. So how do we fix this situation then? So as I see it, you probably see it from a bit different perspective. And this is also something that would be super interesting to hear, whether you disagree with me or if you have any different perspectives to this. But basically, I see that there are 3 essential steps to this. So if you want to go about fixing the situation. So the process and the outcome are going to look very different and they're going to vary by the company, and they're going to look very different for self-serve SaaS to enterprise SaaS. That's a very high touch with a very high touch sales model, but the steps are the same anyways. So basically the first step here would be to create a shared understanding. What is the automation? Oops. Okay. Create a shared understanding of your best clients. So who is the company and the person who's getting the most out of your product, and why so? So you need to understand your ideal customer profile, ICP. You need to understand what is their job to be done. So basically, what is the progress that they are trying to make within specific circumstances? It's always contextual. That's why you need to understand what is their context, basically. And also you need to understand what is their use case there. So these are the 3 things you need to understand to create a shared understanding. just to illustrate my point about the misalignment here again. So this is what most marketers would be looking like still. So I'm also talking about SaaS marketers here, unfortunately. Again, first one to raise my hand. So the first one, the upper one is the big fish, right? So the customer acquisition cost is the same, but they're paying more, and that's better. Like if they're paying more, like that's kind of obvious, right? Except for that it isn't. And that's obvious for the rest of the company, but not for marketers, not for salespeople, because they are being measured by that exact number. They're being measured by how many leads they're getting in or something like that, or even the revenue, but revenue doesn't tell you the whole thing. The problem here is that by looking at the wrong data set, we end up making truly terrible business decisions. So it really like snowballs throughout the whole company. And the obvious conclusion here is that not all customers are created equal, because, I mean, again, kind of obvious, if you look at the upper one, it looks like a better customer, but if they turn basically the day after, like it's obviously not going to be a very profitable customer. But if the other customer is going to stick for life, even though they paid a little less, that's going to be more profitable. And that's, again, obvious for everyone else than for marketers. I feel so bad about talking in this way. I mean, it's just basically, it's not the marketers. Marketers are smart, but it's the misalignment. It's the organizational misalignment that causes this. All right, so how should you go about this then? Like this is basically just an illustration of why you should have a shared understanding of what's your ideal customer profile like. So your ideal customers are the ones that basically fit these criteria. So they just intuitively understand the benefits and the value of the product, and they get to the value fast as well. They engage with the product. They use it actively, you know, the typical stuff. When it comes to the acquisition part, they typically don't ask for a lower price and stuff like that. And as you can see here, the wisdom doesn't live in marketing. It doesn't live in sales. It doesn't live even in customer success. It lives in all the functions. And that's why you should also cooperate when creating an ideal customer profile. Although I have to say that I think customer success and product should be the ones that are telling, okay, these are our best customers, because you actually know how it goes. Marketers are the one who are creating all those fancy buyer personas, yes, and they are the ones using those, but customer success and product should be the ones telling basically, okay, these are the customers that are churning, these are the customers that are not churning, and then you basically sort of like reverse engineer it from there. And if you are happy enough to have enough data, you can basically reverse engineer your ideal customer profile from there. So, you know, just take your most profitable and fastest growing accounts, you know, you can think things like customer lifetime value, account growth rate, and things like this, and reverse engineer it from there. But if you don't have the data, you have to settle for a characteristic-based profile. So basically just come up with a set of characteristics that defines what's your ideal customer profile like, and who are the people that you are going after. So basically what you want to understand is the desired progress per each customer segment, because you can have different ideal customer profiles as well. And you need to understand why they are buying something. And here's a quick illustration of why it's so important. Okay, so let's look at Joan here. Joan is a 38-year-old stay-at-home mom, right? So the thing here is that she's not going to buy this smoothie because she's 38 years old, or because she lives near Manchester, or what other attributes there are. But she is going to buy the smoothie because she needs to keep her toddler busy when they are shopping, or she doesn't have time for a proper breakfast because, but she still wants to keep healthy, or things like this. And this exactly the same thinking applies to businesses. So basically a company of 500 employees buys 500 phone subscriptions because they have 500 employees, right? That's based on the permanent attribute. But when they do buy a project management tool, or when they're looking to buy a project management tool, they are not buying that tool because of the fact that they have 500 employees. They are going to buy it because those 500 employees or part of them want to get something very specific done under very specific circumstances. And that is what you want to understand. So this is here just to illustrate what is the difference between, let's say, a generic buyer persona, which is not your ideal customer profile, and your actual ideal customer profile. Let me just give you a SaaS example here, because this is kind of like simplifying. So this is actually one of our actual clients. So one of our clients founded this artificial intelligence powered SaaS tool / add-on, or I don't even know what to call that. Anyways, that removes manual work from certain financial administration workflows through automation. Okay. So, and their target audience is basically corporate accounts, so corporate companies. To benefit from the tool, however, these corporate companies should process at least 100,000 invoices annually. So that would be the next step. That's your potential customers. But this is still not enough. So instead of settling for this very generic, it's not an ideal customer profile, but like definition, we dug a bit deeper, and we found out that instead of targeting any corporations and any chief information officers within those corporations, these companies should go after some specific corporate chains and companies that are operating in a complex industry, such as leasing or construction, because that's an indicator that these companies are going to have to process at least 100,000 invoices. So we basically took a step further there. But another important finding when we did this by interviewing their clients, by the way, so that's where we got the insights. Another finding there was that they should have the chief information officer can be just anyone. It has to be someone who really, really wants to reposition the finance department as a forerunner in driving technological innovation instead of just, just another cost-saving department or something like that. And that is what makes a huge difference. That is a contextual motivation that really drives them. They're going to make the decision and buy a product based on that, but they are also going to be happy with a little, not that polished product. The product was not ready when they launched this, but they still managed to sell a lot of licenses to different corporate companies because, and those companies were actually happy. They were not expecting to see fully developed product and polished interface. They were completely happy with, some bugs here and there because they were looking for some other value. So that is essentially why you really need to understand what they are after, what is the value that they're trying to get out of your product. And the lesson learned here is that had we stick with the potential customer definition, so basically the simpler one, the middle one there, we would have had very hard time selling this tool to anyone and keeping them happy after the purchase, because that would have been just like too wide of a definition for us to, actually create a compelling messaging. So that's how it basically connects all the functions. Obviously, I'm looking at it from a marketing perspective, but as I already mentioned, it also applies to your customer happiness. Like they were completely happy with a couple of bucks here and there and, getting no answers because the company didn't have any answers at that point. They had to figure out something. So yeah. So instead of just sticking to, technographics such as company size or headcount or industry or vertical, you really need to look at things like behavioral indicators, company values, culture, stuff like this, social and cultural characteristics. And this is a super good exercise. And this is something that I would totally recommend everyone to do. And you would need to, or all the companies to do, and you would totally need to have everyone, like someone from all the functions there. So product, customer success, marketing, sales, engineering, if possible, also management. Perfect. And then the final step for creating your ideal customer profile is that once you have the definition that we just figured out, you need to figure out what is the progress they're trying to make. So what is the value they're trying to get? You probably have most of that information already, but sometimes you may have to jump on a call with your clients. Customer success is in a good position because you already have that. You typically have that information already. So that's why marketers should definitely go back to customer success and ask like, hey, what are these people trying to get done? But a lot of times marketers don't do that. They're just too busy. They just don't realize that you have that information maybe. So you can always like push it to just start sending out, you know, I don't know, automated emails like, hey, here's a analysis of our latest clients that have churned and why they churned, you know. That would be something that I would really appreciate if I was an in-house marketer. Anyway, so you need to get those customer insights, and there's a couple of ways you can do that. So you can either, there's just a couple of information sources that you can use. It depends on the business again, because not all companies have salespeople, not all companies have customer success even. But basically sales calls, customer interviews. I don't know if we can send these slides when we send the webinar recording, because I actually put a very useful link there. So if you want to do something like this, if you want to do this exercise, you can just click the link and give it a go. Different types of surveys. Exit surveys are excellent for this, but also different types of in-app email, website surveys, onboarding surveys, like once you're completing the onboarding process, asking what's your use case, for instance, and then like evaluating whether they got to that value later, and like seeing like, okay, how is this cohort doing compared to the other one, for instance. Product use monitoring, that's a great way to do that. Behavioral triggers, how these people are actually using it, and then basically optimizing onboarding and other things based on that. Customer success emails and calls, and anything related to customer support as well. And if you want to know like what are the questions that you should be asking if you want to go through this exercise, I also have them listed in the blog that I linked there. Yeah, so this was the first step. And once you know who are your best clients and why so, you need to optimize your funnel according to what you've learned. So this is actually the easiest part of this. Like we have 3 steps, and this is the easiest step, I guess, because this is what most people know. This is very tactical stuff. You just need to know where to start and what is the thing that you're trying to achieve. So that's why you need the strategic foundation first, and then you can apply the learnings in like any tactical things that you do. So basically when it comes to optimizing your funnel, and by funnel, I mean, funnel is maybe a bad word or bad term here. I could maybe talk about like customer life cycle or product experience or whatever. But basically, if you don't know what causes friction, you can't decrease friction. And that's why you need the foundation that we mentioned earlier. This really requires understanding it requires you to understand basically what they are searching to solve, what is the problem that they're searching to solve, or the progress that they are looking to make. Yeah, and basically the main goal here is not just for onboarding, but it's also for product, also for marketing and sales, reducing your users' time to value. And this is something that is typically seen as a customer success metric, but I truly believe it could be like a global metric for the whole company. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples of that in a minute. Basically, what you need to optimize, these are just I'm not going to go into details here because we don't have too much time, but just to give you like a checklist. So basically for each customer segment, so there are jobs to be done. So that's the progress they're trying to make, and also for the use case. So what are they using it for, and how do they use it basically? Then also based on the behavior. So the behavioral triggers should be taken into account here. And what you need to optimize is you start from the very beginning. So positioning, messaging, acquisition, tactics and channels, expectations management in the sales process, anything, your sales pitches basically. Then you go for onboarding and product experience. That's obvious stuff, and that's familiar to you guys. Then we have anything related to like customer retention, customer loyalty marketing. This is also something that could be done and should be done, I think, more together with marketing people. And in some companies, it's already done.
I will dive into that a little bit later.
Yeah, exactly. So that's basically the next step. And this is the easy step, as I said, because this is tactical stuff. You already know what you want to do, then you just execute. You just go and do it. I would say that the third and final step is not the most important one because the first one is the most important. But if you skip this step, nothing will help you. Like, if you want to make sure that this information gets transferred across different functions and good habits actually stick, you need to align your success metrics and create a solid feedback loop throughout all the functions. So this is like the natural third step for this. Let me give you a couple of examples because before I will let Peter to say a couple of more words about some other things. So basically, the most important thing here is to align all the functions, I would say top down, in a sense that the success metrics need to make sense, and they need to make sense from a company point of view, not from your functional point of view. And here's a couple of examples. So what I would do, there's a couple of ways to do this, but the first thing and the best way to go about this is to reverse engineer your company's North Star metrics, or like take your company's North Star metrics, whatever they are. If you're looking to grow your business by expanding your existing accounts, that's a North Star metric. And that's what you should take and reverse engineer all the functions, all the other North Star metrics from there for like different functions and so on. That's the best way to go about it. But sometimes it's just impossible because of various reasons. And another way to go about it is to basically expand the use of the most important, the most relevant success metrics throughout all the different functions as well. So a couple of examples from this could be, let's say, time to first value. It's a great example because it's commonly used as customer success metric, but it also works as marketing or sales success metric. So for instance, if a sales rep is managed or compensated by how well they are achieving their time to first value, so that they would be actually getting more bonus if the people that they are acquiring or companies that they are acquiring are getting to the value earlier. That would definitely help them make better decisions. You know what I mean? And the same goes for marketing, obviously. So like whatever marketing is measured by will dictate what they are optimizing for.
Time to first value is essential.
Yeah, but in my experience, most companies are not using it for any other departments than for customer success. I don't know what's your perception of this.
I've noticed that as well, which I think it's bad.
And that's so weird because that's kind of obvious when you look at it from the outside, but obviously if I was there, I would be doing the same thing. So it's really easy to say when you're not in that company. Another thing could be CAC efficiency. So basically you could like break it down into smaller pieces, for instance, decreasing sales cycle length and let's say improving conversion, close rate, reducing time to first expansion, things like this. And all of these could be like long-term success metrics for all the functions. So both before the conversion and after the conversion. And this is something that I've seen working very well when you can get it done, but it just takes a bit time to actually get it working. So these would be the two things that I would do to ensure that the feedback loop is sort of like baked into the everyday work. And the final thing that sort of like goes without saying is that you also need to create processes for that to create that solid feedback loop. And this is something that I'm going to let Peter take it away from here. So he will let you know, or like he will cover that in a bit. I'm just going to give you one more example about how it actually looks like when those like success metrics are misaligned. And this is the typical scenario. So this is what a typical marketing funnel and marketing success metrics look like. So here you have the goals, you have conversion, and your success metric is, for instance, a number of leads converting, or number of whatever, the amount of revenue. Then on the other hand, here's life after funnel, as I like to say. So you have your own success metrics. And that's kind of funny. I mean, they make sense. And these make sense as well. But when you look at them together, they don't make as much sense as when you look at them separately. So that's why I would always, as I just mentioned, I would always also recommend introducing some sort of common high-level success metrics and reverse engineer it from there. It can be anything, and it's always obviously different from business to business, but you should always have something else and not just the function level success metrics. All right. So I guess
Here we go.
You take it away from here.
Yes, no, actually, not my turn to share. Just so I don't have to sit and go, hey, now it's, can you please go to the next, here we go, let me make sure that everything is there. Alrighty, so closing the feedback, part one. Closing the feedback loop, part one. So for the marketing team, this is coming from the CS side of the story. Remember to talk to your teammates. I mean, we're there, talk to clients all the time about everything, about their businesses and everything. So make sure, for example, to get feedback on creating role-specific landing pages. I mean, look for input on messaging, problem, and solution. I mean, we know in CS, we know which type of people we're talking to. We're connected with them. We're building those relationships. We have a lot of information to share. And this should be there should be a process around it. Like, make sure that this is in place. Make sure that, you constantly know which are the successful clients and how they work, and make sure that knowledge gets into landing pages, into whatever it is that you create from a marketing side, because that also makes what are actually maybe lead magnets might actually make for a very powerful customer marketing element as well. Because it's, once clients get in, you have to constantly educate them, you have to constantly demonstrate value, and if that is visible through any way, that needs help. And that's where I get to, hey, CS, remember to actually talk to marketing, because it will help you in your job. Your job is to drive the desired outcome and constantly demonstrate the impact of our product, even if it's indirect, right? We don't link our products to our customers and to anticipated benefits. Expectation management, as was mentioned earlier. Make sure that marketing that you help marketing set the right expectations right from the first paid ad, because that's where they already start looking at your brand, at your tool, at your product, at your service. You need to make sure that it's all the way through, and as that funnel, it needs to be a loop. Like, we need to make sure that we're getting the right clients in, and that comes from a lot of things. So looking at this feedback loop, what can you do from CS? Make sure to nurture your promoters through MPS. Do some extra engagement with customers who have high performing results. Ask them. I mean, it's very simple. Like, did our tool help your sales guys spend 1 hour less per person per week? Let's say you have a 100-person sales team, or 10-person. Let's make it 10. Keep it simple, right? 1 hour per week. That's 10 hours per week. That's 40 hours. So that you basically save a whole working week of hours. That's a lot of money. Or do it the other way around, right? Not just saving things, but actually performing. Do they shorten their sales funnel? Do they close deals faster? Or do they engage better with their employees? I mean, right now we're all talking about remote employees, right? How do you make sure that they don't disappear? How do you make sure that your communications is in place? So talk to customers who openly talk about your product in social platforms. It's obvious, but there's many people have no process in place. Make sure to find champions. I mean, this is a whole separate discussion as well, working and developing and nurturing champions. But you can already start with, look at their online reviews. And in relation to this, by the way, always connect with your clients on LinkedIn. Make sure that you're always there in front of them. And with that also, I come to do some internal training on advocacy. And this is marketing and CS that can sit together. How do we ensure to drive this? So for example, create a process for customer interviews. Make sure you secure reference calls. It doesn't have to be more than 5 minutes, but just so you make sure that knowledge comes back constantly. Get customers to join for webinars or events. I remember a lot of these things, and it's powerful because you suddenly have a client who actively talks to all your client base about, hey, this is what we did with this tool and it works. um, Again, internal communications tool, for example, right? uh, there's a lot of talk about that now. For example, my employee turnover went down with 25% in the last 6 months. Fantastic. But also vice versa. Like, a lot of people are doing more events and webinars. You can also join them to talk from your angle. Even from a simple call, any meaningful engagement, you can get a quote. Hey, I heard you say this. Can I use this for a tweet, for example? And constantly reevaluate, how do you actually push for online reviews? Or even, I heard this one the other day. I haven't seen this very much, but engage customers for branding exercises. Like, include them in making sure that your branding, that your tone of voice, that it's on brand, that it's on point. Let's put it like that. That you actually engage with the right clients and prospects. Have a streamlined case study process. I recently got contacted by this research company who had been doing research on webinar tools, and they found me in a conversation with a webinar tool, not Zoom, by the way, and ended up talking for hours with them. They wanted to know that because this company I work with, they did a lot of really good case studies. So somehow that came up. Put customers in a room with your C-suite. So ask your whatever, when is the last time you spoke to a client? When have you sat in a room and talked about what are you trying to achieve with our product or service? Are you actually achieving these things? Make sure that they sit down. And of course, as we are in an age of technology, automate that advocacy. Use your CS and marketing tooling to the max. Make sure it's integrated. Make sure there's the right data flows where you can do, this is an example, pop quizzes, landing pages, training videos. You can do all kinds of things that are all related to each other in your customer education. Now, this is all very nice, and there are a lot of things that you can do, but make sure, this is my angle, and I mean, and I was talking about ICP. My point of view is, make sure, look out, how are you a big fish in a small pond? Start there first. Try and win that sub niche, and then start developing further. Right? When we talk a lot about product market fit in general in SaaS companies, but the tighter that ICP is defined, the better you can do it. So there are a couple of things in that, of course. I mean, the bad news, the tighter you define your ICP, the smaller your TAM is, your total addressable market. However, good news is you'll have a better conversion rate and you'll have a better retention because you actually touch the people that you actually need to touch. I think investors would like that as well, because you basically create a much healthier base to work from, right? That's my CS angle. But of course, nothing is complete without measuring all these things that I talked about. And this is something I borrowed, stole, inspired by customers, by Gainsight, one of the CS vendors. They have something called customer success qualified advocacy. And they measure on a bunch of things, for example, internally. Case studies, improved adoption, health score, training completed, but then also all these things that I just went through, testimonials, promoters, speaking at your events, all these things can, of course, you can build very, let's say, weighted averages of this, and you can even make it part of your bonus scheme. How much advocacy did you drive within your group of clients, within your book of business, as I hear people call it. So my last thing here, work with marketing to go from lagging metrics to measuring meaningful engagements. And a little hard because, we all have to, this is what we do, right? We need to build that relationship. So that was it. We did it. We went way over time. We had talked about, we can do this in about half an hour, but here we are. So any questions? So I saw a comment here from Alejandro, who had to leave earlier. I would argue that the ideal customer is one that has the use case and the pain points that can be solved with a product, not just who understands the benefits of the product. Anna.
I definitely agree with that, and I was maybe being a bit unclear, but that's sort of like baked into that. So like obviously it has to be like you have to be able to solve their problem. So I completely do agree with that.
All right. Any comments, questions? Do I see something here? All right, Ollie, thank you, Anna and Peter. Thank you, Ollie. And Laura, good points that can be improved. Well, you know, all these things are for one reason. If you walk away with one thing that you can implement tomorrow, everybody wins, right? Dave, I have a case study applying this if people would find it helpful. Absolutely. Make sure to connect with Dave on LinkedIn as well. He's doing a lot of great stuff in our CS space. But hey, even if it's from 2010, doesn't mean we can't learn from it. And thanks, Carolina, for the comment. It's indeed a symptom, not just the disease. So there you go, Dave. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, thanks. Totally going to steal that. And like,
of course we are.
Yeah.
You know?
And like churn numbers are changing surprisingly little. Like I was just doing some research and looking at different like average churn numbers from SaaS companies throughout the years. They're not really changing. Like I'm like, how is this happening?
Yeah, there's so many things we can be surprised about, but hey, it keeps us working. So
exactly.
Well, thank you all. Hey, I see Carlene, great to see you. Long time no speak. Carolina, great. Thank you, Casimir. All right, if no further questions, then I just want to say thank you for today. I hope you took away something. I definitely enjoyed this. Cheers, Thomas. Hope to see you and the family again soon. Maisa, say hi to the gang. Yeah, everybody have a great it's Wednesday. Wow. And enjoy. I'm running off. Have to pick up a tiny human and enjoy your evening all. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.